What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. On today's show, the Raiders. How are they this bad? And what does it mean for Pete Carroll's future? Plus, UNLV basketball suffered another horrible loss. Thank God it was on Baller TV. And the Golden Knights, great road trip. Are they back as Stanley Cup contenders? Technically Correct is brought to you by Fragile Boxer Flower House. With nearly 2 decades of design experience, Fragile Boxer Flower House is known for creating bespoke, couture, floral installations for weddings, luxury events, and brand storytelling. Amanda, the owner and designer, leads every detail with a designer sensibility, offering a fully tailored boutique experience for each client. Find her on Instagram at Fragile Boxer. Here we go. Did the Raiders quit on Pete Carroll? The Raiders were embarrassed yesterday, 31-0 to the Eagles. What was that offensive game for the Raiders? They scored 0 points. Field Yates tweeted out that it's the first time since 2000 that an NFL team has been shut out twice in the same season. The offense had 75 total yards. They ran 42 plays. They didn't even average 2 yards per play. Ashton Genty ran for 35 yards. You want to guess how many yards that Kenny Pickett got sacked for yesterday? -35. Brock Bowers was the leading receiver. He had 6 catches for 26 yards. And Kenny Pickett dropped back, threw it 25 times. He amassed 64 passing yards. They had 8 drives yesterday. 3 of them gained negative yards. 3 full drives gained negative yards. Not 3 plays, not 3 handoffs. 3 drives ended with negative yardage. They took a total of 10 snaps in Eagles territory, most of which came on the first possession. The closest they got to scoring was the Eagles' 33-yard line. Yeah, there's a backup quarterback in there. Yep, Philadelphia is a good defensive team. But what the hell was that? I mean, that was as non-competitive as it gets. You guys remember when they fired Chip Kelly and then they leaked to the media that Chip Kelly was calling plays that they hadn't installed in the offense, and that was the problem? That's what was holding this team back? No. Also, wasn't quite as embarrassing as the offensive performance, but the defense wasn't good either. But one of the most embarrassing parts of this game is that the Eagles take their starters out very early in the fourth quarter. We got Tanner McKee and Tank Bigsby, and they led a 17-play drive, went 79 yards, and ate up 11 minutes and 22 seconds. Fortunately, the Raiders stuffed them on 4th down at the goal line. Good job there. But that was against the Raiders starters. Max Crosby and the rest of the defense were out there for the entire drive and couldn't get off the field against Tanner McKee. Now, after the game, Pete Carroll was asked about the idea of his players quitting. And here is what Pete Carroll said. He actually interrupts the reporter before the full question gets asked. But here is what Pete Carroll had to say.
I'm not saying they've quit, but with 2 wins.
Oh, these guys fought their ass off. Hold on. Let me address that because you brought it up. They fought their ass off. That was the result. They didn't stop fighting. That was the result of our play right there. And I have a lot of respect for the roster we just played against. And maybe they didn't look like it in the last couple of weeks or whatever, but they played like they're capable, and we couldn't stop them. And so that's what I saw.
So that's Pete Carroll being half-assed if the team quit. And that's the kind of performance that the Raiders gave off, is that you've got people wondering, well, did that team quit? And I honestly don't know what's worse. Is it worse for Pete Carroll if the players did quit on him? Or is it worse that they just got beat 31-0 in a game where everything was terrible, but they were trying their hardest? Even Pete Carroll said in his press conference, the only good thing was that no one got hurt. But let's imagine that the Raiders didn't quit. That was pathetic. Like, across the board, that was pathetic. Not a competitive football team. They were so bad they didn't look like they belonged on the field with another NFL team. And that's the entire reason Pete Carroll was hired. He was hired to make the Raiders look competent. He was hired so that the Raiders weren't an embarrassment. And here they are, one of the most embarrassing teams in the league, and had just one of the most embarrassing games in one of the most embarrassing seasons. Honestly, I think that might be worse than if the team did in fact quit. Because at least if they quit, it's just players not believing in a 2-12 season anymore. I don't think they quit. I just think they're this bad. But now my question is Pete Carroll going to quit? Not in season. I don't think that's going to happen. But is there any reason for Pete Carroll to come back next year? Is there any reason he would want to come back next year? Like, does he have some desire to not let this be the last impression of him as an NFL coach? Like, I have to imagine he doesn't want to do this. Hell, did you see him yesterday? I felt bad for him. He's outside at 74 years old in some like 20-something degree weather. He's got two different jackets on that have a hood. He just looked miserable. I mean, it looked terrible for Pete Carroll out there, just standing in the cold with enough layers on that maybe didn't keep him warm enough. Like, does he really want to come back and coach this team when you once or twice a year got to go coach in that weather? What is appealing? What is appetizing about this team? I don't know. And so, like, why would Pete Carroll come back? I've talked before about the idea that the Raiders shouldn't want Pete Carroll back. He doesn't match their timeline. They need to be in full rebuild mode. But why even would Pete Carroll want to come back? Because this is terrible. Like, this is horrendous. And he's got to go. And listen, credit to Pete Carroll. He answers pretty much every question you ask him. We'll even jump in and give you a great answer to a question you weren't asking. But why would he want to do this? Why would he want to come and talk about, oh, did my players quit on me today? It's just, I can't understand why he would be intrigued by that. Does he want to coach a rookie quarterback? Because that might be the only carrot the Raiders have for Carroll or any head coach that would make this an intriguing job or appealing job is, hey, we've got the number 1 pick or number 2 pick in the draft, whatever it ends up being. You might get to coach Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore, something like that. Does Pete Carroll, does he care about that? Does he want to do that? I don't know. Now, the race for the top draft pick. Raiders lose yesterday, which keeps them in position where they still control their own destiny for the number 1 pick in the draft. The Giants gave it a good run against the Commanders, but came up short. So as of now, the Giants still hold that number 1 pick. Remember, they play in a couple of weeks. That's probably going to decide the number 1 pick in the draft. But they play in a couple of weeks. The Titans also lost again, so they're at 2-12. So those are the 3 2-12 teams. Again, Raiders lose out. They jump the Giants because they should hold on to the tiebreaker over the Titans. There are 3 teams sitting at 3-11. Cleveland, the New York Jets, and Arizona are all at 3-11. The Raiders would likely lose the strength of schedule tiebreaker to Cleveland and New York. At least as of now, they would. And they would likely hold it over Arizona. So a win from here on out could drop you out of the top 5 entirely because of the strength of schedule tiebreaker, especially a win over the Giants, because then you lose that game and they're ahead of you. But the Raiders in position to lose out and get the number 1 pick, but also they win one of these games and all of a sudden they're picking outside the top 5, which brings me to Patrick Mahomes' torn ACL, because that is bad news for the Raiders. So the Chiefs have been eliminated from the playoffs now. Patrick Mahomes tears his ACL yesterday. They lose to the Chargers, and they are done. They cannot make the playoffs, regardless of how well Gardner Minshew plays. Now, first off, I'm shocked. I know I've watched it happen, but I'm shocked that Kansas City is out of the playoffs. And out of the playoffs with 3 weeks to go. Like, I'm stunned by that. They've got Patrick Mahomes, and they're not even going to go to the postseason, right? Denver and the Chargers were ready to take advantage of it in the division, and they're both going to go to the playoffs. Denver's might get the 1 seed in the AFC, but Kansas City 1-6 in 1 possession games. Like, they cannot win these close games. I believe all but one of their losses by 1 possession. Maybe it's 2 now, by 1 possession. But here's a fun stat for you. last year, when they went 15-2, got the number 1 seed in the AFC, the Chiefs' point differential was plus 59. This season at 6-8, their point differential is plus 60. Their point differential is better this season. But this is bad news for the Raiders because the Chiefs are not going to care about their Week 18 game against the Raiders. And Gardner Minshew is going to be playing. Maybe they'll want to get a revenge win for Gardner Minshew. But the Raiders have a much harder time to close out the season with a loss than we thought. A much easier time to potentially win a game at the very end of this season. So not ideal for the Raiders that Kansas City is suddenly not playing for something towards the end of this season. Also, by the way, Chargers are 10-4. Justin Herbert has a broken hand. That offensive line is beat up as like any offensive line in the league. Are they good? Like, EPA per play has them 5th on defense, which is obviously good, but only 22nd on offense. They've not been a very good offense, especially since a bunch of the injuries have hit there. What is that? Is that a good team? I can't really tell. I don't feel like that's a good team, but I feel like it's another one of these teams where you can throw the Eagles in there. You can throw the Texans, the Broncos in there, where the offense isn't great, but the defense is really good. And so you get these close games and you get these wins in these close games that lead you to, I guess, 10 wins, 10-4, whatever it's going to be. Maybe a 1 seed in the division for the Broncos. Or in the conference. So I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of teams that aren't really great offensively that are actually the best teams in the league this year, at least by record. So Raiders yesterday had a disaster of a game, but they're still in position to get the best pick in the draft if they lose out, which is probably the only important thing right now for the Raiders. Technically Correct is brought to you by Fragile Boxer Flower House. With nearly 2 decades of design experience, Fragile Boxer Flower House is known for creating bespoke couture floral installations for weddings, luxury events, and brand storytelling. Amanda, the owner and designer, leads every detail with a designer sensibility, offering a fully tailored boutique experience for each client. Find her on Instagram at Fragile Boxer. Thank you to Fragile Boxer for sponsoring the show. Big shout out there. Love that we got a sponsor in here. For florist, for flowers. I love that so much. I should get some flowers. Just put them right here for the entirety of the show. But shout out to Fragile Boxer for sponsoring the show. Check her out on Instagram at Fragile Boxer. And now it's time for Bischoff's Briefs. All right, I don't know how much you guys could tell, but I was struggling through that first segment. I don't know what's happening. I got a lot of crap in my throat, apparently. It's not a great start today. So I hope I didn't sound too terrible. But we start Bischoff's Briefs with UNLV basketball losing to Tennessee State. Lose that game by 3. First place we got to start, though. This game was on Baller TV, which means to watch this game on Baller TV, it costs $19.99 to watch one game between UNLV and Tennessee State. Neither of these teams are going to the NCAA tournament. What is $19.99 for one game? That's more than actual streaming services cost for an entire month. $19.99 for one game. What is going on? Why is this game so expensive to watch on Baller TV? What's happening there that you've got to pay $20 to watch 2 terrible teams play basketball? That was insane. And by the way, Baller TV doesn't even have like an app you can get on your smart TV to put it up on your television. Like, what is this? What is going on here? Like, this is a horrendous way to distribute a game. Like, at least the Mountain West Network is free. It might not always be the highest quality broadcast, but at least the damn thing's free. At least I can just go to a website and I can get it on a smart TV. Baller TV for $20. That's worse than anything UNLV basketball's done for the entire season on the floor. Now, in this loss. If you listen to the show on Friday, this is not a surprise, but both teams were terrible from three. UNLV shot 3 of 15, and Tennessee State was 2 of 16. Neither one shot a ton of threes, and neither one made very many threes. Not that much of a surprise because these are two of the worst three-point shooting teams in all of college basketball, both shooting well below 30%. However, I told you both these teams are very fast in tempo. They both play. They're both top 50 in tempo. Was not a fast game. There was only 70 possessions for both teams. It was a pretty slow game, but it was UNLV's worst offensive game of the season. They were held to 0.87 points per possession. The national average is about 1.1, and UNLV had not been under 0.9 in any other game this season. So to have your worst offensive game of the year against Tennessee State is pretty shocking. Now, some fun stats for you. UNLV this year is 2-1 against teams in the top 100 of KenPom. 2-1. They are 2-5 against teams outside the top 100 of KenPom. So that makes no sense. They are 2-0 when playing outside of Las Vegas or Henderson. They are 2-6 when playing in Las Vegas or Henderson. Also makes no sense. But Josh Pastner, in his first 10 games, has now lost 3 times to a team outside the KenPom top 200. KenPom ratings go back to 1997. The only other time that UNLV has had a season where they have lost to at least 3 teams outside the top 200 were 2 of Marvin Menzies' seasons. His first season, which was very bad, and Marvin Menzies' final season, they lost to 3 teams outside the top 200. But that's it. Since 97, no other UNLV team has lost to teams outside the KenPom top 200. Has not happened 3 times in a year. So this is bad. And I know there are injuries. And I think the injuries are a valid excuse for why this team is not NCAA tournament level. I think that is a completely valid excuse. I don't think it's an excuse to have 3 of these losses in 10 games. I don't think you can excuse 3 of these because of injuries, especially, I mean, that was the healthiest they had been was for this Tennessee State game. These are, and like KenPom only goes back to 1997, but prior to 1997, UNLV was pretty good at basketball for a long time under Jerry Tarkanian. So there's a real chance that Josh Pastner has 3 of the worst losses, 20 losses in UNLV basketball history. There's a real chance that he has 3 of the 20, 30 worst losses in program history in his first 10 games. That's terrible. Like, it's genuinely bad. And I don't know, I don't know how you evaluate this beyond it's just horrendous because the injuries suck. They don't have who they thought their starting point guard was going to be. Until 2 games ago, they didn't have who their starting center was going to be. That's 40% of your starting lineup. It's, the 2 most important positions in theory. Like, there's an alternate reality where Miles Che and Emmanuel Stephan are healthy to start the year, and they're the 2 best players on the team, and UNLV is performing well. But so again, it's hard to evaluate the team on the idea of going to the NCAA tournament because of the injuries, and I think that's the valid excuse. But these losses, I mean, what are we doing? Like, these are horrendous losses where UNLV is, some of them have been bad defensively. This one was horrible offensively against bad teams, like games that you would think you'd just be better basketball players, even with injuries. You just be better than that team. And it hasn't happened for them. Also, I did want to give a shout out to Rob, who sponsored Bischoff's Briefs all of last week. By the way, you can sponsor Bischoff's Briefs now if you want. But shout out to Rob. Unfortunately for Rob, Navy beat Army 17-16 in the Army-Navy game. So feel sorry for Rob on that one. However, I do want to point out that Navy, down 6 with under 7 to play in the fourth quarter, went for it on 4th and goal from the 6-yard line, scored a touchdown. And then Navy, when they have a chance to run the clock out, it's 4th and 1, we're after the 2-minute warning. They go for it on the 4th and 1, get it. Army's used all their timeouts, so now Navy runs the clock out. 2 different times, Navy going for it on 4th down to help them take the lead and then finish the game off. we're getting the analytics of fourth down in the Army-Navy game. Analytics has won. It's finally won on fourth down decisions. It's made the sport better. Analytics has won because even in Army-Navy, we've got it factored in here for teams that, hell, half the time don't even want to throw the ball. They will actually go for it on fourth down. So, sorry, Rob. I was excited to see fourth down decisions, the right fourth down decisions, even in Army-Navy. Now, here in Vegas, the Spurs and Knicks are going to play for the NBA Cup on Tuesday. After New York beat Orlando and San Antonio beat Oklahoma City in the semifinals. San Antonio gave OKC just their second loss of the season. They're now 24-2. But Victor Wembanyama came back from injury. He only played 20 minutes. 22 points, 9 rebounds, 2 blocks, and in those 20 minutes, the Spurs outscored OKC by 20 while he was on the floor. That's kind of ridiculous, right? You shouldn't really use plus minus in a single game as like a meaningful stat because there's a lot of noise around it. But that one, the noise was Wembanyama and how good he actually is. And I am just hoping that the Spurs are a playoff team because I want to watch Wembanyama in a 7-game series. Like I really want to see that because I think it's going to be fun. Listen, there's like, anytime you watch him play, there's like 5-6 plays a game that are just hilarious where it's just like, he's comically larger than NBA players, and it just makes for funny moments. Also, in the state of Nevada, Nevada's women's basketball team played Pacific over the weekend, and the game went to overtime. And Nevada led Pacific by 5 with 55 seconds in overtime. And apparently the power went out, and they couldn't get it back on. And the game got declared a no contest. So they played into overtime. They played regulation and beyond into overtime. And Nevada's up 5 with 55 seconds left. I know, I just watched the Pacers come back from margins like that in the NBA playoffs. But like, Nevada's women's are going to win that game. They're going to win up 5 with 55 seconds to go. And now they don't get a win because the power went out. Funny part of this, the Nevada men played the same day against Duquesne. They got the power back on in the same arena, got the power back on, and they played the same day and had their game against Duquesne with no issue. So the Nevada women just got completely screwed out of a win because the power went off at Lawler Event Center. Also in the Mountain West, barely hanging on to calling this the Mountain West, Boise State lost the LA Bowl to Washington 38-10. Maybe it's a good thing UNLV didn't make it to this bowl game to get crushed by Washington, but that was the last LA Bowl. The Mountain West champ is going to have to go to a new bowl game next season. Don't know what that's going to be. Hopefully it's not a terrible bowl game against some MAC team. Hopefully the Mountain West is able to swing a bowl game for at least their champion against a power conference opponent. But that was also the last time Boise State played as a member of the Mountain West in football. They're going to the Pac-12 next year. So that was it. They won the Mountain West championship and then go out and kind of embarrass themselves against Washington. But big story I did want to get to here in Bischoff's Briefs. In the NHL, we actually had 2 trades, but the Minnesota Wild over the weekend traded for Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes, 26 years old, one of the best defensemen in the NHL. He was apparently not going to sign an extension in Vancouver, so the Canucks traded him. He does have another season on his contract, though. He's not a free agent after this year. So he's got another year on his current contract, but Vancouver decided to trade him now. This is fun from The Athletic. When Minnesota traded for him, there had been no assurances that he was going to sign an extension. Now, he gave a quote saying that he could see himself signing an extension with Minnesota. He said it's close to Detroit. You could just go play for Detroit if you want to be close to Detroit. But they traded for him because Vancouver was like, he's not signing an extension here, so let's get a haul for him. And now Minnesota's got a guy, and I would love to see a Mikko Rantanen scenario where they have to flip him like Carolina did last year because they're like, uh-oh, he's not signing with us. We better get something for him. So Vancouver, though, they got the Wild's top prospect. They got Marco Rossi, who's a solid center, another prospect in the trade, and a first-round pick. I've seen it phrased as they got the equivalent of 4 first-round picks. I don't know if that's true or not. Like, could they have traded the 3 players they traded for 3 other first-round picks? That's probably not accurate. So that seems like a way to spin it. But it does seem not bad for a player that they were at least in their minds, being forced to trade because he wasn't going to sign an extension. It's not an unbelievable haul, but it appears to be very, very good when you don't have the leverage, which is a good reason why they traded him with 1.5 years left on his deal, not half a year left on his deal. We'll see how good Minnesota is with Quinn Hughes now. There's a chance the 3 best teams in the West at the end of the year are all in the Central. You've obviously got Colorado at the top, but now Minnesota and Dallas chasing are those teams 2 and 3 in the West. And it gave me the idea, if you're Dallas or Minnesota, one of them should absolutely tank to be the number 1 wild card, because the number 1 wild card's coming to the Pacific side of the bracket. And like, if you get down to the end of the year and if you're Minnesota or Dallas and you're like, all right, if we finish in the 3 spot in the Central, we got to go to Dallas. And then if we win that, we got to play Colorado. Whereas if we tank out to the wild card, yeah, first round is probably going to be against Vegas, but is Vegas any better than Dallas? And if we win that one, then the second round's against what? Anaheim? So the way the unbalanced nature of the West right now makes the number 1 wild card spot more valuable or a better path than the number 3 spot in the Central. So I kind of hope we get to the end and that's a genuine conversation. But the thing on this trade that I wanted to kind of ask Golden Knights fans about, would you rather have Mitch Marner or Quinn Hughes? Because NHL team trades 26-year-old superstar because they don't think they can sign him to an extension is the exact player the Golden Knights trade for. They love to trade for guys that are in this 26 to 28 age range because that's a player's peak. And I think they've done a very good job. It might be the best thing they've done over the course of their whole history is trade or let leave in free agent or find a way to retire them because of injury. Guys, when they get to 33, 34, 35 years old, and replace them with guys that are 26, 27, 28. They literally just did it with Alex Pietrangelo and Mitch Marner, right? That they've done this cycle over and over. It's why the Golden Knights have been able to stay near the top of the league without really having any draft prospects that come up and make a big difference. They don't have that as a franchise, and normally you need that to stay competitive for as long as they have, and that has not happened. But they've just been able to find these guys, and this is why. It's because other teams have a star player and they don't think they can keep him for whatever reason. It can be Eichel's surgery disagreement with Buffalo. It can just be that Ottawa's bad and Mark Stone, they want to trade Mark Stone for assets. Like, they've done this all the time. And so Quinn Hughes is a player that was available. And I think if you look at the Golden Knights roster right now and you look at the moves they've made, if they don't sign Mitch Marner, technically trade for Mitch Marner, then they probably have the cap space to go after Quinn Hughes. Would they have had the trade capital? Yes, they could have figured out a way to make it work. But who would you rather have? Quinn Hughes, I'll give you the simple ones. Quinn Hughes is a defenseman, has 2 goals and 21 assists. Mitch Marner has 6 and 23. It's pretty close. It's pretty close for a forward and a defenseman. You'd rather have Quinn Hughes on your team. So I do think you can look at this and ask yourself, which one would you rather have? Because the Golden Knights probably missed out on a chance for a player that they would, if they had traded for Quinn Hughes, they would have done a press conference. They would have said, this type of player doesn't become available very often. They say it every single time, even though they do it every other year, where they get that type of player in the exact scenario that happened with Quinn Hughes. They would have said that and told us how great it is to be able to acquire that player. But they didn't, and I think you can point to say, hey, they used that cap space on Mitch Marner. Was that actually a good use of the cap space? By the way, another thing the Golden Knights have done well in this, when they have made these trades or acquisitions, they sign the player to an extension. Like, they don't trade for these players and then do what Carolina did, where it's like, oh, we might not be able to sign him. We can't sign him. We better trade him 2 weeks after we got him, right? It's not this case of, oh, maybe he's interested in saying. They actually get those extensions done, which is a good thing for a front office to do. Seems like a thing that any front office should be doing when you make that type of trade. Last thing in Bischoff's briefs, Philip Rivers lost in his return to the NFL. 44 years old, playing quarterback. They lost 18-16 to the Seattle Seahawks. Indy's defense was actually pretty good against a tremendous Seattle offense, held them to 6 field goals. Rivers, though, 18 of 27 for 120 yards. If you want to do the math real quick, that's 4.4 yards per attempt. I don't think he can throw the ball 20 yards down the field. He did twice. One of them got picked off. The other one is incomplete. But he can't throw the ball 20 yards down the field. I do not believe that he is a better option than Brett Rippon or whatever level of hurt Riley Leonard is. I do not believe it because he can't throw the ball. He cannot throw the ball 20 yards down the field. Any of his passes to the sidelines were just Russell Wilson moon balls. You got to drill one in there, and he's out here throwing a lob. That's not going to get you anywhere. Yes, they were in a close game with Seattle, but it's not because of Phillip Rivers. It's because that defense was tremendous against Seattle's offense. So I don't know why. I don't know how the Colts decided, yep, the 44-year-old guy is just going to walk in and be able to play for us, but he can't throw the ball. There's no way that's going to be the plan going forward or should be the plan going forward. It was kind of funny, kind of sad. There are a couple of moments where he got hit kind of hard. One where it was a bad snap and he just kind of fell down. But yeah, not great. We don't really need to do that to Phillip Rivers. Just let some of the guys that are actually in the age you're allowed to play football, play football. But that has been Bischoff's Briefs. We have a interesting special sponsorship now. So this comes from Chad, listener from Canada, and Chad wanted me to give out a thought of the day, his thought of the day. And for Monday, his thought is bring back the Excalibur Poker Room. I wasn't aware the Excalibur Poker Room had closed, but that's what Chad wanted me to tell everybody today. But Chad, his sponsorship with me, brought me to an interesting idea because many of you have asked if I'm going to start a Patreon. Enough of you have asked that I should probably do it. So first thing, if you would be interested in me doing a Patreon, if you're unaware of what that is, it's a subscription, right? My goal here is the show is always going to be free. I might yell at you about some sponsors. Shout out to the Fragile Boxer Flower House today. But we can do some extra stuff, some extra content. So if you're interested in me doing a Patreon, let me know. You can email me at technicallycorrectvegas@gmail.com or tweet at me. I've had enough of you say it, so I probably should figure out how to do that. But I had an idea similar to Chad. So I'm going to use Chad's throughout the week to kind of see how this works. But the idea would be you as a listener give me some topic that you want me to prove. If you listen to this show, you know I love to use stats. You know I love to use stats to try to prove some sort of point. But the idea would be you give me basically a prompt, and then I have to give you stats to back it up. I know we have at least one Oregon fanatic who listens to the show because he asked me on Instagram. He listens to the press box, texting me all the time, yelling about Bo Nix. But he asked me on Instagram how much it would cost for me to declare Bo Nix the best quarterback in the NFL. He looked good yesterday, and I hate to say it, but that would be the idea. You give me a prompt. The best one would be a prompt that's clearly not true or something that you know I don't like, and then I have to go and sort of prove it, back it up with some sort of stats or evidence, giving your argument merit. So that's an idea. If you want me to do any Patreon, we can. But again, shout out to Chad, who just says bring back Excalibur Poker Room. Chad's got more thoughts of the day throughout the week. So you're going to get to hear Chad's thoughts of the day. Tomorrow, I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on Chad's thought of the day. But the Golden Knights won again over the weekend, which means they finished off their 5-game road trip with 4 wins and an overtime loss. 4-0-1 on that trip. So a good overall trip. Listen, they didn't win or lose in overtime against Columbus. They actually finished a game in regulation. Big shock there. But if you look at that road trip, this is to me what's fascinating. The Golden Knights, they beat New Jersey 3-0 to start the road trip. The next 4 games were decided by either 1 goal or a shootout. They are what I've been talking about. Every game for this team is extremely close, as close as it gets most of the time. And if you look at this road trip, 5 games, their goal differential in the 5 games was +6, which is pretty good. Their expected goals was +3.5. But here's what I thought was fascinating. At 5-on-5 during this road trip, where again, they went 4-0-1. At 5-on-5, they got outscored 8-7. So they went on a road trip and won 4 out of 5, but did not outscore the opponents at 5-on-5. And it wasn't any sort of fluke because the expected goals at 5-on-5 during this road trip was 8.7 to 8.6. So Golden Knights a little unlucky. They probably should have scored one more in there. But basically, they played even through 5-on-5 through the entirety of this road trip. Obviously, they won the games, right? And not sitting here saying that 9 points in 10 games isn't good. It is. But I don't think you look at that and say, oh, at 5-on-5, the Golden Knights were good enough to get 9 points through 10 possible points. But where they were good was everything that wasn't 5-on-5, right? On this road trip, the power play scored 4 goals, didn't allow a shorthanded goal. And again, if we're looking like expected goals to see how much of a fluke it is, not at all. Their expected goals was 4.1. Their expected goals allowed was 0.3. So power play wise, they did kind of exactly what was expected of them, and it was very good. Shorthanded, they were very good. The penalty kill allowed 1 goal. They killed off of 20 minutes of penalty time. The expected goals for opponents was 1.4. So again, not fluky. It's not like they were getting crushed on the penalty kill and goaltending was great, or the other team just missed the net. Like, they had a very good penalty kill through this playoffs. And then, maybe the shocking one, at 3-on-3, the Golden Knights scored twice at 3-on-3 and didn't give up a goal. So they didn't lose in overtime, but they didn't give up a shot attempt at 3-on-3. Shot attempt, not shot on goal, shot attempt at 3-on-3. Did not give one up at 3-on-3 in this road trip. The Golden Knights only produced 0.4 expected goals at 3-on-3. So I think you can point to it and say they were probably a little bit lucky that they scored twice. But I have a hard time saying that you're actually lucky to win in overtime when you're not giving up a shot to the other team, right? Like, that's as good as it gets defensively. So generally speaking, 5-on-5 is the best way to judge a team. If we're trying to decide, hey, is this team good at hockey? What they do at 5-on-5 is sort of the best way to gauge that. And on this road trip, the Golden Knights were just, again, completely average at 5-on-5. They weren't bad. They weren't good. They were just average. But I do think there is a path to winning, obviously making the playoffs, but winning in the playoffs if they are average or the same as their opponent at 5-on-5, because I think most teams they play, the Golden Knights are going to have a better power play. I think that's going to be the case, and we'll see. The penalty kill has not been as good this year, but it's looked a lot better recently. I do think it's reasonable to say the Golden Knights could win 2 playoff series while not really being better than their opponent at 5-on-5, but their power play and penalty kill are better than their opponent. So we'll see how they do at 5-on-5, obviously, the rest of the year. They've been a little bit better than average at 5-on-5 for the majority of the season, but there is some credence to, hey, don't get crushed at 5-on-5. Don't get beat at 5-on-5 and be better than your opponent at special teams, and that should work. Now, Golden Knights had a fun game here because their power play goal, I get to pretend like I'm really smart. So recently, the Golden Knights have been scoring on the power play with Mitch Marner shooting from the point, looking for a tip. Usually it's Tomas Hertl that's in there looking to deflect the shot. But the goal they scored on the power play was built off of that because Marner gets the puck at the point, and he starts skating into the high slot looking to shoot. And importantly, he doesn't shoot. He fakes the shot there. But as he's winding up for a shot that doesn't come, and right before he passes, all 4 Blue Jackets are in between the width of the circles, right? All 4 of them are sort of in that slot area, which is only like roughly 10 feet apart. So all 4 of them are in the width between the circles, trying to block his shot, defend Tomas Hertl so he can't get a deflection, like trying to stop this shot from the point that the Golden Knights have been doing a lot more recently. So when Marner turns this shot and all of a sudden, oh, it's a fake shot and it's a pass to Dorofeyev at the circle, Dorofeyev, when he shoots, nobody's close to bothering the shot and nobody's in position to block it, right? All it is can Dorofeyev beat the goalie? We have seen Marner distributing more on the power play up the middle through the slot, right? We've seen that more, and now we've seen a team basically collapse on that, and it set up something else. And so this power play has so much firepower that these are the things that I think we should be seeing throughout the entirety of the year, right? Obviously, the Stone to Dorofeyev pass is what's been the best since last year and now at the start of this year. But that's slowed down a lot. That's been taken away. Dorofeyev has not scored on a few chances that he's gotten there. But now we've seen a couple of other areas where, hey, they're getting something with Marner to hurdle, right? We're still kind of waiting for Eichel to have some moments here, some run here where he's the driver of the power play and creating goals on the power play. And I'll be honest, I don't see why the power play doesn't finish top 3 in power play percentage at the end of the year, right? Goals per minute right now, they're 4th, but expected goals per minute, they're 2nd on the power play. I don't know why they wouldn't be one of the best teams in the league, one of the best power plays in the league, again, just like they were last season, because they're good. They got good players out there, and they've just got a couple of passes they can make that get them wide open shots especially for Dorofeyev, who's very, very good from that faceoff dot. One other thing from this game that I enjoyed, at least from hey, could the Golden Knights show us they're better than average? Could the Golden Knights show us that they're a true cup contender? Is something that they did the year they won the Stanley Cup. One of the best parts about the Golden Knights when they won the Stanley Cup is that they shut games down late. They had a lead with 5 minutes to go. They were sealing that game up. They were excellent at it. And the best way to do that, don't give up shots. Don't let the other team shoot, or if they do, don't let it even get through to your goaltender. And the Golden Knights did that in their final win on this road trip against Columbus. Braden McNabb got called for a double minor with 2:59 to go. So the Golden Knights have to kill off a penalty for 3 minutes to win that game in regulation. And in that 2:59, Columbus had 1 shot on goal and just 3 shot attempts, right? Columbus has a power play for half of that time. They go to 6-on-4 when they pulled the goalie. They're should be in desperation mode to score, in desperation mode to shoot. And the Golden Knights just didn't let them shoot. Didn't give up shot attempts, didn't give up but 1 shot on goal. Carter, if you have to ask your goalie to just make 1 save in that scenario, you're probably going to win 99% of the time, right? That should have been a frenetic scenario. That should have been chaotic, right? Carter Hart should have been having to scramble to make saves and keep it out. But the Golden Knights didn't let that happen. They didn't let the chaos happen. And so in the conversation that I keep having about how good is this team, are they average, are they an actual Stanley Cup contender, I think that was a sign of, oh, okay, there's something there. Because that's what you would do if you're going to be a true cup contender is, hey, we've got this 1 goal, especially this team, if they're going to play every game to overtime or by 1 goal. But we've got this 1 goal lead. We need to shut everything down. That's what they did in that game. Last thing I wanted to end on is in the world of college football. Because I'm a Heisman voter. It's a great thing to be a Heisman voter. There's a lot of Heisman voters. You don't have to be that special, but I love being a Heisman voter. But my Heisman ballot, just so everybody gets to hear it on here, I'll go in reverse order for you. You get to vote for 3 people. Number 3, I went Jacob Rodriguez, the Texas Tech linebacker. So this year, I didn't feel like there was a great winner choice. I don't feel like there was an offensive player that truly just dominated college football. I might have been one of the weaker Heisman classes. I feel like it's the weakest that I voted on. And it felt like that there was a reason to have a defensive player get a vote, especially the season that Jacob Rodriguez had, where he led the nation in forced fumbles and he had 4 interceptions. There's a stat that Bill Connolly of ESPN tracks called Havoc Plays, and he basically just tackle for loss, forced fumbles, interceptions, sacks, basically anything that is in the box score that sort of keeps the offense off, right? You hit him in the backfield or you take the ball away, something like that. He calls it Havoc Plays. Jacob Rodriguez led the entire country in Havoc Plays. He was also 13th in just total tackles. He led the country in run stops. PFF tracks run stops. Like, He was tremendous. I also love that Texas Tech pandered to voters because they gave him 2 rushing touchdowns late in the year on the goal line. They also tried to have him throw a touchdown, and he threw an interception in a blowout against West Virginia. But I voted for him third. He was the best defensive player in college football this season, and I thought better than the majority of offensive players as well. At number 2, I voted for Julian Sayin, the Ohio State quarterback. So Julian Sayin had the best statistical season of any passer in college football, right? If you look completion percentage, he was 3 percentage points higher than number 2 in all of college football, and that's while being top 5 in yards per attempt. They did throw the ball down the field. You don't normally get high completion percentage with balls down the field. Normally, those are all passes to the line of scrimmage. Not the case for Julian Sayin. He led college football in PFF rating and quarterback rating. He had just 6 interceptions this year. PFF tracks turnover-worthy plays. 1.5% of his passes were turnover-worthy this year. You also can look at it, break it down by under pressure and not under pressure, and he still completed 62% of his passes under pressure, and his turnover-worthy play was only 1.9% under pressure. He was great under pressure, right? He was almost the same guy under pressure. He had the best statistical season of any quarterback. I do think it's fair to say he's got the best wide receiver room in college football. I do think it's fair to say that he's not the best player on his own offense. All of that's true. He still had a great season. And the Heisman vote is who had a great season, right? Jeremiah Smith did not have a good enough season, even though I think he's better than Diego. Then I just gave away my number 1 pick. I think he's better than Julian Sayin, right? But Jeremiah Smith didn't have a good enough season to get a Heisman vote, even though he's better. I'm not drafting guys for the NFL. I'm saying who had the best season. Now, my Heisman winner was Diego Pavia, the quarterback at Vanderbilt. And Pavia won it to me because I think he did more for his team than anybody else in college football, right? You compare him to Fernando Mendoza at Indiana, you compare him to Julian Sayin at Ohio State, and the first place I think you go to for comparison defensively, Ohio State and Indiana finished first and second in SP plus defensive efficiency. Vanderbilt finished 31st, right? They were third, though, in offensive efficiency. And if you go through again, like under pressure, not under pressure, when blitzed, when not blitzed, Diego Pavia was a top 10 PFF quarterback in all of those scenarios. He was better than Fernando Mendoza in all of those scenarios as well. Sayin had him beat on a couple of them, but Pavia was great in all of those scenarios. He was only 14th this year in passing yards per game, but he added an extra 68 rushing yards per game. He was Vanderbilt's leading rusher, and he was one of 2 quarterbacks this year that was top 15 in both passing yards and rushing yards per game, and the only one to do it from a power conference. And this was my favorite stat, though, for Diego Pavia. There are big-time throws. Pro Football Focus goes through and charts and says that's a big-time throw. On passes of 20 yards or more down the field, Diego Pavia had 21 big-time throws this year. He only had 19 completions on passes of 20 yards or more because he can't play receiver and catch it for himself, right? Pavia was doing so much more by himself than any other quarterback in college football. And he ends up finishing third in EPA per play, second in PFF grading. Bill Connolly does a fun thing at the end of every year where he has the quarterback with he actually has a formula for this, but he awards like the dog in him. He has a formula for it. And Diego Pavia was first in that. He had one of the best seasons of any college football player this year, and he didn't have the infrastructure around him that Ohio State, that Indiana provided. Like, he did not have a great defense. He did not have great receivers. He did not have a great running game, right? That was the Diego Pavia show. And that's why he got my Heisman vote. He had a tremendous year while doing it with very little around him. So I voted for Diego Pavia to win the Heisman. And yes, it means Fernando Mendoza was not in my top 3 because I don't think he was better than Sayin or Pavia over the course of the full season. If I was voting for a Big Ten championship, a Big Ten MVP, championship game MVP, I'll get the words out right eventually, then yeah, Mendoza was better than Julian Sayin. But over the course of the entire season, Sayin was better than Fernando Mendoza at like everything. The Mendoza Heisman, I think it was a weak class and there wasn't a true runaway winner. And ultimately people went with the quarterback of the team that finished number 1 in the country. That's fine. I don't think he's that much worse than Diego Pavia, but I do think it's pretty bunched up. Like, for example, I don't think Sayin, Pavia, or Fernando Mendoza were significantly better than Trinidad Chambliss this year. I think that's how close or how weak the quarterback play was this season. But Diego Pavia was my Heisman winner. And fun fact, if you follow me on TikTok, which you should, everybody's mad at me on TikTok for voting for Diego Pavia. That's a weird place, a weird thing that I'm saying that I didn't think was actually going to happen. But that's our show today. Again, shout out to Fragile Boxer Flower House for sponsoring the show. I really appreciate that. If you want to sponsor anything, if you want to be a part of the show, email me at technicallycorrectvegas@gmail.com. If you just want to tell me that I'm doing something bad or good, you can email me there. You can also do anything you want to tell me. I asked you if you want to do Patreon. Let me know. We'll do that. But that is where you can get me at technicallycorrectvegas@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in.